Hello, everybody, and welcome to this. She Has Infinite Potential Live. I am your captain speaking, Chloe Wangu, the brand scientist. And with me today is the inimitable, the brilliant, the witty, the delightful Femily Howe, known as Silicon Valley's gender equity advisor. And today we are going to be talking about why cultivating thought leadership as a woman or an otherwise underrecognized person, especially if you're working a 9 to 5 and especially if you're in tech, is important. So without any further ado, Emily, I would love to have you tell folks more about yourself and your work, just so that folks know you. And then I can get into the many questions that I have.
I love this. Hi, friends. Yes, Chloe is correct. I'm known as Silicon Valley's gender inclusion advisor or gender equity advisor, meaning I help tech companies, mainly smaller, nimble tech companies, get better on gender inclusion and all kinds of diversity. And I love helping well-meaning, left-leaning founders make their companies as diverse and inclusive as they're already saying they are on their sort of like stock photo images of diverse and happy people.
What? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Love that. Okay. And so the way that Femily and I know each other specifically is that I came to Femily by way of their Future Thought Leader program, which is brilliant and genius. And I'm sure we will talk about at some point during the course of this interview. But Femily has this huge heart and really loves giving back and is doing so through this program. So I just want to put that out there, that is something, that's how we know each other. And speaking of programs, I also want to bring up the fact that the She Has Infinite Potential panel actually has an upcoming one-day summit. It's going to be October 7th. And in that summit, we're going to be helping you take better ownership of 5 key parts of your life so that you can avoid burnout and get what you really want. So if you are interested in that, the SOS Summit, the link is down below. Make sure that you go and check it out. I'm going to be speaking on time. So this is going to be really exciting. Brand scientists and time. All sorts of fun and trouble we're going to get up to. So with all of that out of the way.
Love it.
First question, Family, I'm going to ask you the real hard-hitting things. So first question is this, just so that we level set.
Yeah.
How do you define thought leadership, right? There are almost as many definitions of thought leadership as there are people to give them. So how are you defining thought leadership when you talk about it?
Yeah. So when I define thought leadership, I mean someone that people are turning to and listening to in ways that bring the industry forward or the field forward or the world forward. Yeah. And so when I talk about thought leader in my program, I'm helping emerging thought leaders or soon to be thought leaders, or why am I not a thought leader when my peers are and we're both great kinds of people. So in that way, I don't mean you're already on a stage making $1 million and the people are already listening to you. I call it future thought leader because in the future, you can be someone that people turn to and listen to about the topics that matter to you. So, right, you were talking about tech. So it could be just in your boardroom, in your meeting room, on your team, in your company, in your industry, people are listening to you when you are bringing forward the ideas that could really reduce risk, help innovation, be more inclusive, et cetera. It could also mean that you are going to, of the 200 people that have graduated from the program, some have gone on to shape their workplaces and some have gone on to shape the world. But either way, what's happening is they're making a name for themselves so that they become more bulletproof in both their industry and in their specific jobs and careers.
Yeah, yeah. And that actually is leading into the next question that I wanted to ask you. So great minds, great minds. Which was just generally like why would it even be important for folks who are working in a 9 to 5 context
Yeah.
to develop thought leaders or to become thought leaders? And you sort of alluded to this a bit, but I want to let you speak more. And I have some thoughts as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone would just read your article in Harvard Business Review, people who are overlooked, this is one of many remedies to being overlooked. So it's a way that you can position yourself and take command of your story of what you're known for. And so, for example, one of my participants in Future Thought Leader worked in a tech company, was being overlooked due to being a non-binary person and also a person of color. And so they started a professional organization for people who were thinking differently and more futuristically about gender in tech design, brought in people from all different companies to be a meeting of the minds. And that made them be a person in the know. So their own company gave them more respect. Their own company was like, oh, this person's doing a thing that other people are interested in. Maybe we should listen to them more.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. 1,000%. And that's sort of the idea that I wanted to bring up. And I'm thinking like, I do not personally work in a 9 to 5 context. However, I do have clients that do, right?
Yeah.
And I have seen the power of, I mean, like picture like a Bozoma St. John, right? For those who are unfamiliar, Bozoma St. John is like a high flying, gorgeous, excellent at her job, impeccably dressed marketing executive, right? And has worked for, like, if you think up the name, she has worked there and for them, right? And she has garnered this this profile that expands beyond any one particular company, so that her career is more of a portfolio, right? That she's not just attached to Netflix or Uber, which I'm pretty sure are companies that she has worked at, right? But she is Bozoma St. John, who has worked at these other places, right? And that actually leads to, desirability in the industry, right? Like if you ever end up like leaving a company or attempting to leave, they will probably try to get you to stay, and they'll work hard to ensure that, right? And if they still don't meet your own criteria, right, because now you're operating from a place of power, other places would be overjoyed to have you, right? And so that's part of the thinking that I think is so key, that when it comes to being a thought leader, frankly, it feels to me like what you're saying, and this is what I've observed myself, that what you're doing is you're becoming visible in a way that is not under the control of the company that you work for. And so if that company doesn't always have your best interests at heart, and that can be the case, right? Let's be real. Then you're not dependent upon them, right? So that's sort of the thinking that I have. Any other thoughts on that, or anything that you want to add to that?
No, you're so right. Because in the olden days, and quite recently, and in some industries, I mean, even in finance, right? For example, more behind the times or conventional fields, you sort of like, you did your job. And then when it was time to write your resume, that was where you put the things you wanted people to know about you.
Right.
And then you went and got a job, right? And so that would often lead to major gaps in time between employment, especially if the previous company let you go.
Yeah.
And then you were like, whoa, time for the resume, polishing up the resume, putting the things in there, and then going into the future.
Yeah.
But what's very cool about being a thought leader, whether you're the kind where you're creating a professional organization or community practice that people know about, or whether you're starting to do TED Talks, like both of our friend Laurent Barton does TED Talks on being Black in tech and why not to code switch anymore, and how his stutter has brought him to a whole new level of self-understanding and professionalism, all that stuff. So he's well known outside the walls of his organization, right?
Yeah.
So someone like him, if he were to be let go, he already has 100 notes in his inbox that are saying, can I pay you to advise me on this? If you ever need a new job on here, people just know once you get your opinions out there. And I will say, not everyone wants to be on the microphone. Like, isn't that people fear public speaking more than they fear death, right? I obviously am not telling everyone they need to be a public speaker. I'd have a lot of clients. So, right. And that's not the answer. We don't just need more people on microphones, right? So it's about changing the conversation. So for some people, it's going to be TED talking, right? Yeah. For some people, it's going to be getting asked to be on that panel that when you look up on that stage, it's real white and real male, and there's no one that looks like you or has the kinds of ideas that you have, right? You just want to change your industry. It's not about you getting your name out there, right? Other people, it's about, these are real projects, creating a spreadsheet that lists all of the lawyers that are defending this one kind of person in the community, like the community that the person has come from, so that other people who are going through this particular type of discrimination do not have to do that in the future. So it's making it work better through being able to be brave enough and have the skills enough to get your voice out there.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000%. Oh, I think that's brilliant. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so my next question, and we are kind of touching upon this again, brilliant minds. But my next question is this. So what does it actually look like to be a thought leader, especially when you're employed in a 9-to-5, and maybe especially specifically in the context of tech? Though folks who are watching below, folks who are watching below in the comments, absolutely feel free to like mention what field you're working in. If it's not tech, then, you know, mention a field, right? And we're happy to respond probably back in the comments about what this might look like for you. But just generally with what we have here, what would that even look like?
So if you're a person who has a job and has things that you want to be different, whether it's within your realm of marketing or whether it's within the field of tech, and you're like, there aren't enough people that look like me here, or you are thinking, I think our video game / our product should be different in these ways and no one's listening, or I think our financial field should be listening to risks and they're not, right? Whatever the thing is that you care about, and people come from all different fields in there. Yeah. What thought leadership looks like is figuring out the thing you care about, right? The change you want to make in the world, the thing you want to nudge forward, the thing you wish were different.
Yeah.
The way that your specific personality and characteristics about yourself, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? The way that those would be best put to use to move the needle. And then taking those first brave steps in community with these other 30, 60 people in the group who are all marginalized, overlooked folks who are trying to change the world in some way, wherever they sit. Taking those baby steps, those first steps in community, so that people are cheering you on, and it doesn't feel so scary to do your first live and say, look, I'm an expert mathematician. I'm just going to say it really stinks to be the only woman in the room, to be the only queer person in the room, etc. I am trying to find other lady mathematicians, or whatever your goal is, right? Yeah. Finding other Black artists in your local town and you want to create a thing. I want to do this thing. I haven't spoken about it before. Please help me find my people. I want to do it, right? So doing those first steps in community. The important part is we spend a lot of time self-reflecting, so you can pick the one that feels like you. You are terrified of doing a live or an interview like this. That shouldn't be the one. If it super turns you on to crunch out white papers and know how to get them noticed by the American media, so that then those pieces can be infused into the media that more people are reading and the policymakers are reading, then that's where you should be focused, right? So it's about figuring that out before springing off into all of this burnout kind of action.
Yeah. And I actually really, really love this approach. The idea of figuring out like an approach that actually works for you, right? As opposed to sort of like the general thought leadership boilerplate, right?
It's not like, writing a book. Maybe you want to be the person that when you're watching a very cool documentary, you're the person in the chair getting asked about their expertise about the thing, right? There's so many ways to contribute your ideas, your opinions, and it's not all a microphone on a stage.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So I will ask this follow-up question. Do you think that that is the most common problem that you see when folks try to make thought leadership happen for them? Just the idea that they're trying to apply a boilerplate
Yeah.
that doesn't fit them,
Mhm.
or are there other more common issues that you tend
Yeah.
to see?
There's people have a general idea that they need to be everywhere. They have to be on
Mm,
TikTok, they have to be on IG, they have to be a whiz at LinkedIn, they have to be like speaking here, writing a book, blah, blah, blah.
mm,
It's very not true. If you're doing one extreme, you have to have a newsletter, etc. You have to, if you're doing one really well, that's so much better than being in all the places. I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on TikTok, I'm not on Twitter/X, and I never was. And those are not the songs in my heart. Instagram for a long time has been a song in my heart.
yeah.
LinkedIn has been a different song in my heart. So I think that's the reason, just the overwhelming pressure to be able to master and
Mm,
be the smart person and the best person, the most authentic person on all of these realms. The other thing that holds people back, people think, well, I can't start a thing like this or do a newsletter on this topic because there's already someone doing that.
oh my gosh, yes. Oh my
There's
goodness.
already someone organizing designers of color. There's already someone doing women in engineering. Like, who am I to start it? It's
Mm.
already happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yes. And I remember that I did a workshop for the future thought leader community about this. Yeah, about why, like, yes, do it
Mhm.
anyway, and like what the science has to say about why, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny actually that now that I'm thinking about the two things that you brought up, they actually connect to the same scientific fact. And it's this, right? The idea that um that showing up everywhere, sort of like in an ubiquitous sense, right?
Mhm.
All that that is doing, if you're not being intentional about it, right, is teaching people how to filter you out, teaching people how to overlook you, right? That's what you're teaching people's brains to do, right?
Mhm.
Because if they don't pay attention the first time and you keep showing up in all of these different places, the brain already has set a precedent that this is a stimulus I'm going to filter out, I'm going to ignore, right? And so that's just reinforcing that
Yep.
instinct, right?
Yep.
Um, and add to that the fact that it's already an instinct to overlook folks like us, right? That's what under recognition is all about. Um, that is already the status quo. And and that's why it's so important to have multiple people who look like us reinforcing these ideas.
Mhm.
It's not enough that there's the one person, right, who's
Yeah.
doing the same thing, right? And this is the thought that I shared with your community, right? That even if in the worst case scenario we have someone else who's like your doppelganger, like same exact
Yeah.
experiences as you, they are your literal twin. They
Mhm.
look the same too, right?
Mhm.
Even if that were the case, it would still be valuable for you to say the same exact thing that that doppelganger is saying, because that reinforcement is
Mhm.
necessary to overcome under
Mhm.
recognition and to bring about behavior change at scale in the way that we need to see. So I just wanted to bring all of that up because those common problems are connected to like they have a common thread between them, at least from a scientific standpoint.
You're
So
always here with this scientific thing. You're like, that thing you said, loved it. And also, guess what? It's totally right in terms of the science. That's why I love working with you and collaborating with you.
because the
So good.
science supports it,
Yeah,
and
so good. So
which
good.
is
No, it's
evidently a
very true.
catchphrase.
And the thing is, like, of course, there were other people who were business
Yeah,
consultants helping companies with gender, with women, with LGBT, etc.
yeah,
But I'm coming in with my own unique personality, my own fact that I refuse to leave anti-racism at the door, my
yeah,
own fact that I'm flagrant in my fashion sense. Like there's just so many different things that matter and like matter less, and just a whole constellation of ways where people are like, I'm either very drawn to you and you're refreshing compared to the other ones, or you're not for me. That's the other troublesome thing. You asked before, like what keeps people from being a thought leader?
mm,
Being willing to be so out there / interesting / weird / totally you,
yeah,
that you'll turn someone away. You have to be enough of pushing the envelope to turn people away in order to magnetize the people who are like, I've been waiting to read someone who writes articles like you, who doesn't code switch, who draws from facts and neuroscience, right? Who sees this from a global perspective, who always shouts out other women's names when she's also rising, like whatever the things are that are the things that are uniquely you.
Yeah. 1,000%.
And that keeps people back, because professional companies like tech and finance, and I'm rolling my eyes, but they're all my clients. Like they train you to be so like J. Crew magazine, like, hello, I'm just here and here's my PowerPoint. Like,
and then we're going to ignore my giant Grogu in the background.
And that's who's your thought leader. You're in there with all these people who bring their stuffy, who bring their truth. And then you're like, oh, I can be a little bit more outside the box. And every step outside the box brings you more people who are like, you are so refreshing. I needed you. I'm feeling stifled in my world of tech. I'm so glad you're here. I'm listening. I'm listening. It's the whole thing of how do you get not under noticed, but listened to.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000%. And I think the thing that I will add to support that, obviously the science supports everything that you've just said, and I could talk at length about that, right? But I don't want to keep us here forever, though I would enjoy it immensely. The other thing that I would add to that is understanding that feeling of risk that you have around being that version of yourself, right? The version of yourself that is distinct, maybe I'll say, right? That's not necessarily something that you want to ignore, right? And this is something that I will always keep coming back to. I will always come back to this. That as an underrecognized person, especially, you want to trust your instincts, because you have grown really, really good at picking up potential threats in your environment because you've had to. And so if something feels unsafe, chances are you're picking up on cues that are bearing that out. And so instead of pushing down that feeling, pay attention to it. Try to notice what it is that your senses are picking up on. Create a plan around it. And then when you feel safe, move forward, right? So, and there's gonna be varying degrees of like risk versus safety, right? But I think the most dangerous thing is ignoring your instincts entirely. Make sure you address them, right? But
that's why baby steps in community. If you're like, oh, I think I should come out about everything about myself that society has always told me is a zero on this one podcast, here we go. I feel scared. I'll ignore it and just do it. No, we're not leaping and the net will appear. We are listening to the inner truths that say that might not be the best thing for your career, for your life, and for people listening to you, right? So it's like, okay, maybe when you're on your friend's podcast, you vaguely mention one of those things and you lean a little bit, you tiptoe out onto the stage and you're like, I'm a little bit of this. I'm wearing these quirky glasses. I'm not wearing this full ball gown and the leather jacket quite yet. And then you see if it's fine. And if it is fine, then you can tiptoe out more.
Exactly.
Into whatever your version is.
Yes. Exactly. So I love this. And I love that that's part of your approach. So I wanted to just sort of bolster that and bring that out, because I do know that that's something, I mean, when folks come to me, it's something that they feel, right? And I always just want to validate that and say that, no, your instincts are actually quite good.
Yes.
So with all that being said, let me see. I have a few more questions here, and I'm going to pick the one that I'm most interested in. Okay, yeah. Let's try this one, actually. So if you had to give somebody like one tiny thing that they could try to sort of take them one step further on their journey towards becoming a thought leader in their industry, what might it be?
I would try a thought exercise of what if you were 5 years from now and people started listening to you right now? What kinds of things would you be telling your industry, your community, the politicians in your city, state, government? Like, people were listening to you and they were leaning in to your perspective on tech, on the role you play in tech. What would the actual changes be that you would be talking about? What would be the advice you'd be giving people? So understanding, like, sometimes we mute ourselves because we're like, well, no one's listening. I don't have a podcast. I'm not even going to think of ideas I would share, right? I'm not writing a book, so I'm just going to keep these thoughts between me and my best work friend, between me and the people that I'm having over at my dinner party or book club or whatever, right? Like, we have these thoughts and they're ferocious, but like, we're not dreaming big enough. So that's the exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I just dropped my mouse. Apologies for that loud sound. I was just like, no, that's so good. Oh my God. Oop.
I love it, because when we show up imperfectly, we make room for other people who are like, I could never do an interview show, because all that ever happens is people hold their interview notes right here. And if you can't do that, you can't ever ask important questions.
No, exactly. And like, honestly, it's funny. I was telling Kristen, who is helping us produce this, and who's also a ship panelist, that like, this is the first time that I'm leading a ship panel live. And I was like, and I'm kind of nervous. Like, I'm a little nervous. I haven't done it before, but I knew that I was in good hands, Kristen's hands. I knew that I had a good template in that we've done this before. And I knew that I had a guest that I love and enjoy speaking with just generally. And so I was like, well, all the factors are at a 10 right now. So
when you said that, you were like, I felt nervous. So this conversation you brought up before, that's so important about listening to your instincts.
Yeah.
It's not that you waited until the day when you felt no nerves and then you knew it was time to take the microphone, right?
Exactly.
You acknowledged your nerves. You looked within and you said it. You said, I feel safe here. So you said, I feel nervous, but I listen to my intuition, and that intuition is saying, you are safe. You are just nervous. So this is what I make myself be courageous, right? You don't wait until you feel totally brave. You wait till you're safe, and of course nervous, and you do courage. You perform courage.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love the way that you put that. Chef's
It was all from you. I took all the seeds you were saying. That's why I love talking to you, because I get to feel smart. Like, oh, these things that you just said, I'm seeing them. We're amplifying them together.
Oh my gosh. This is why we make such delightful partners. We should do everything.
Yes.
Well, maybe not everything together. You do need to sleep, and I do also need to sleep. So we should do many things together.
I agree.
But I will say this, it has been an absolute pleasure having you. We are coming up on the half hour. So what I will ask is this, Femily, if folks want to be in your orbit, to follow more of what you have to say, where can they find you online?
Oh my gosh. So I'm known online as Femily on the Go. And so you can find me on Instagram there, and through the link there is where you can sign up for my newsletter and get news about Future Thought Leader. Our next cohort is happening January, February, March. Yes. So get in here. If you're not having people lean in and listen to all your stuff all the time, I can help you change that.
Oh my gosh. And can confirm. Yes. So, wonderful. Femily, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming here. I know that you are an intensely busy person, and so I'm so glad that you made time for this little captain and her big ship. Thank you so much for your time. I will remind you all that the ship panel, the She Has Infinite Potential panel, we have a summit coming up on October 7th. So if you want to learn more about how to be intentional with the resources that you do have, right? Join us. We have so much to share with you. So yeah, we're at the 30. I will say thank you so much for your time again, Femily. And with that, Um, what do we usually say when we end these things? Ship shape?